Good evening and welcome. I'm Reverend G. I'm the minister at the Unitarian Universalist Community Church, which is in Portage. And I am just delighted that you are choosing to spend this time with you. And Libby, welcome you here with us tonight. I'm so grateful that you accepted our invitation. I don't know, I sometimes think I'm paying close enough attention, but then I'm not sure that I am. So Deborah may have said you will receive the recording right afterwards. We will you will be able to view it afterwards if you need
Yes,
to rewatch it for
yes.
any reason. And you probably
After
mentioned that, but yeah.
I mentioned it in all the marketing materials, but not here. But yes, that recording that we are doing will be sent out to you. And Libby is going to be referencing some resources and different things. So in that email that you'll receive after this with the recording, there'll be resources you can refer to with links. So.
So anyway, I'm just so delighted that you are here. We Thoughtful Thursday we realized that we really enjoy this, and then at the church we have a theme for the year, and then each month has a sub theme, and then for each sub theme we invite somebody either from the community or from the larger community who is either doing work or is involved with whichever sub theme we are exploring that particular month. So that's how come Libby is our guest this month, and next month Byron Katie will be our guest at the Thoughtful Thursday event. So also, if you wish to donate, you are welcome to. You can either do it on the website, or Deborah, I'm sure, will share a link with you. Your donation supports this programming. And then also, if you find value in this programming, spread the word. Spread the word that this exists, and then check in with us often. And thank you for attending. So Libby, you are our guest tonight, and I've known you for a number of years. And the way I think of you is royalty of, of natural healing and healing in general. At, for sure in this community. If I ever have a need, or if I have a thing that I would like some alternative approach to whatever issue I have, you are for sure the very first person who I reach out to. And you have helped me many times throughout my life, and I'm sure you will help me some more. But I'm curious, Libby, you have been practicing for about 35 years, is that correct?
A little more, but I say
even,
that
even longer than
it
that.
dates me enough.
Yeah. And how did it all start?
I got interested in nutrition in high school and college.
Okay.
And then I got my BA in psychology at University of Michigan, and then decided I was going to go there for social work, and at the last minute decided I was more interested in holistic health. So went to different holistic health institutes, moved to Kalamazoo in 1980 to work on a federal nutrition grant. And during the grant and afterwards studied all kinds of body work, massage and shiatsu and reflexology, and went into private practice doing that. And then just saw acupuncture work more quickly for more serious illness. So decided to go back to school for a 3-year program in acupuncture and oriental medicine, and got board certified in that. And that was in Chicago. And I did internship in China and at Cook County Hospital in Chicago. And then I just kept learning. I just have this thirst for knowledge. So I just kept taking more and more seminars to learn muscle testing and more about supplements and more about different healing techniques, tapping, and things that people can do themselves. Because I really like that, to be able to give people things they can do to help themselves on their own.
I did not realize that you actually went to China.
Yeah. Worked in the hospitals there, inpatient and outpatient.
How long were you there for?
I was there for a month. We did a month intensive, and it was it was great to see like a whole country embrace the medicine we were learning, because here it was back then, it was more alternative, and and it was very neat. And it was in China, I'm sure now still, it was not a particularly high paying profession to be a doctor in Oriental medicine. So people went into it because they just wanted to help people. So it was neat.
Mhm. So in the years that so you started years ago, um, how was it received then?
Well,
What you
then
had
it
to
was
offer, and then
literally,
and I'm also curious, like how did you start? Where did that begin? Like how did you start offering it? I want to know your beginnings.
well, I think I just got interested in nutrition way back. I read a little bit of Adele Davis. My grandma was one of my grandmothers was really into like just simple, good food and had a garden, and I think for me it just was a draw for me. The First I studied reflexology and learned that you could help people through that, and then after working here to do the nutrition grant, I just knew nutrition was important, and I just was drawn to all those different things. It was just kind of a progression.
And then eventually you opened a practice.
Right. Eventually, I got board certified in 1991. After the 3 years of Oriental medicine, I got board certified and opened a practice. Well, worked with a few other people at first, and then an MD and a DO asked me to practice with them up in Otsego, Michigan. I did that for 3 years, and then I moved back. And then all my clients were just driving up here from there from Kalamazoo, so I decided to come back to Kalamazoo, and had an office on West Main for 16 years, and then another one for 5 years off of Stadium, and then my partner Mary Ann Scott and I just really felt like we were just called that nature was part of healing. And so we thought, well, why don't we try to build a wellness center on a beautiful piece of land? And because nature is part of the healing, right? Our connection to the earth and to Mother Earth. So we looked all over the place, and ended up finding a place just 15 minutes right out West Main, that was right around the corner from where we were living, on 40 acres.
Okay.
And purchased it, and then converted a barn into the wellness center. And the conversion was the township didn't let us save much. It was a rebuild, but it was great because we could put crystals in the foundations and all kinds of neat energetic things into the building, so we really could make it special.
That's wonderful. Now I know that if anybody wants to book with you right now, probably there's a waiting list. At least that's always been my experience with you. But how was that in the beginning?
I was really fortunate. In 1984, I had gotten trained and certified in reflexology, and the Kalamazoo Gazette did an article on me and reflexology, and my phone rang off the hook. And honestly, I've had a waiting list ever since with everything
Wow.
I've done. I was super busy
Wow.
with that, and with private practice. And then when I went to acupuncture school, my clients were just waiting for me to come back and do acupuncture. So I was very fortunate and unique in that arena. I just always was. I connected with people. They could tell I cared. And so it was.
That is very true about you. The one thing that came across to me right away when I first met you is your absolute genuine caring and your, I mean, focused desire to help. And I find that just amazing. And you're so good at this. And the other thing that I always know about you, how you're always exploring new um, um,
Avenues of healing.
avenues and practices. And so, what are the things that you have found throughout the years, and the ones that you deem very, very helpful,
Well,
successful?
one of the things that I realized, and so did, and with my partner Marion Scott, was that all the research was showing that what promoted healing was calming the mind and opening the heart, and that the body doesn't heal when we're in fight, flight, freeze. And culture tends to keep us in that fight, flight, freeze. Oh, fear, fear about the election, fear about everything. And that amps up our nervous system, and we're not wired for that. We're wired to be in that fight, flight, freeze maybe 5% of the time, and a lot of us are in it 90 to 95% of the time. And when we're in that, the body goes, you don't need to heal. You need to run from the tiger that you think is coming, whether it's in your head or not. And most of the time it's in our heads. And so forget, healing. And so one of the things we've really focused on is super good techniques that help calm the nervous system. We call it self-regulation, so that we can self-regulate and calm things down, because that's when the body heals. That's when the body heals. And two of our really flagship techniques are heart math and tapping. And I'll talk some about each of them when you're ready, and explain why they're so good.
Go ahead. Go
Okay.
ahead and talk about it now.
So
I'm especially also curious because what I find about me right now, that I have this health condition that is taxing, and then this upcoming election.
Right.
And
everyone's in distress over that. And I think
and I'm just, yes, how do you address that, and what do you recommend?
Well, number one, we have to learn how to get out of that extreme distress. We just have to, because it's, number one, it doesn't help, because it puts it out into, we're in a field of energy, right? And we're all connected. So the more freaked out we are, it just sends that out to everybody. But from an individual standpoint, it really stresses our system, and it can't go into healing, because it's like, I'm not giving you energy to heal, because you got to run from the tiger. And so basically we have to channel those concerns into shorter periods of time that are hopefully productive, right? When we're actually proactive and doing something about an issue, versus fretting over it and freaking out, because it's super hard on our nervous system. And how I discovered heart math was actually through Marianne, my partner, who at the time wasn't my partner, but she was under tremendous stress and had seen 12 doctors the year I saw her, and was heading to Mayo Clinic, and we cleared a lot of stuff, got her allergies under control and this and that. But her job was so stressful that I'd treat her, she'd be great. She'd come back a week later and she'd be a mess again. I mean, she was way better than when she first came, but we had this plateau. And then one week she came in and she's a little better. The next week she's a little better. The next week she's a little better. I'm like, what are you doing? Because I'm doing the same stuff and you're getting better. So you're doing something else. And she said, yeah, I learned this heart math and it's amazing. And I'm going to become a heart math coach. And it's really changed my whole stress level, even though I'm still under all that, in that stressful environment. And so I'm like, why haven't I heard of this? I look for stuff all the time. Well, I think the name heart math was a big discredit, because most people don't like math, right? If it had some really cool name, everybody would know this technique. But it's a series of techniques. And basically in the 1990s, they discovered a neural bundle in the heart that's like a second brain. And it literally is 40,000 neurites. And there's more communication that goes from the heart up to the brain than the other way around. It's a huge communication center with the brain. And it helps, when it's in regulation, it helps regulate all of our other systems, including our healing systems. So then they're like, okay, we found this. Now how do we get it to work well? And they discovered this series of techniques, one of which we'll talk about today, quick coherence, that regulate. And what got me really interested is I read a research article that said there were 20 medical conditions reversed with heart math techniques alone in double-blind studies. And those were things like insomnia, ADD, ADHD, depression, chronic fatigue, chronic pain, heart arrhythmias, diabetes. I mean, high blood pressure. It was crazy. I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? So I've done, I obviously went and got some training. Marianne's the big heart math coach, but we teach people, and we actually do it in our Sunday meditations. We start our meditations with heart coherence. So it's a very simple technique that we can go over in the videos. Links you're going to get links to heart math, about it, and also how to do the heart coherence, a guided thing. But we could also do it in here today if you want. But so those techniques are just amazing. First, and we say do them when you don't need them, so that they work when you do need them. So you do them, 3 to 5 minutes, 2 or 3 times a day. And you get better and better at it, and you can feel that you're regulated. And there is an app for people who are techies. There's an app called the Inner Balance, and the app is free. But to get the hardware that works for it, see if I can pull it up for you. If you can get the hardware that the hardware is like, the best up to date ones maybe $260, but mine's 10 years old and it still works. So it works forever. And it's a way to actually read your coherence, so you can practice the technique and see what you're getting into this very coherent heart brainwave that's way better than relaxation. So, and when you do that, all your healing systems come online. So it's super helpful. So that's one of our big techniques that we just really stress with everyone. It's very good. The other one is tapping, which most of you probably heard of, emotional freedom technique or thought field therapy, or simple. And I'm going to recommend a book for the tapping. I'll write this. I think I have it written in my notes, but it's called Enjoy Emotional Freedom. And the nice thing about this book is it actually covers both emotional freedom technique and another group of techniques that are called simple energy techniques that are also super effective and very simple. So I like the tapping, and I tell people that if I had to choose between giving up my needles or giving up tapping, I would give up my needles. That's how effective this technique is.
Really?
Phenomenal. And you can use it. I've seen it work for everything under the sun, from acute injury. One time my now mother-in-law slammed her thumb in a sliding door, and I'm like, okay, let's tap. And she didn't have any problem with it. So you can use it but it's great for anxiety. It's great for clearing what we call the negative emotions, anger, frustration, etc. And I can teach it. Why I love it is we can teach it, and we do at our center. We can teach it to our clients. We can teach them heart math. We can teach them the tapping so they can do things in between when they see us. If it's a really big event, like if someone, has a really big major trauma, I say, you don't do that on your own. Just come in and we'll work with it. But it's a phenomenal way. And usually when I'm emotionally distressed, often I'll tap first before I do the heart math, because it clears that distress. So it's great for just like, sometimes I'll just have people tap just to regulate their nervous system, but it's also good when you're under stress or distress to clear it. And basically that was discovered by a guy who named Dr. Roger Callahan, who was a psychologist, but had also studied muscle response testing, and acupuncture. And he was working with phobias, and he was super frustrated, like, why this isn't working. All these, these techniques of desensitization aren't very effective. So he had a woman who was, 40-year phobia of water, had been in therapy for 25 years. I think he was her 11th therapist. And, every week she'd come, tell him how bad the week was. And on a really good week, he'd try to get her, treated her at home because he had a pool, and he'd try to get her to walk down to the pool and lightly touch her feet to the water. So she lived in California, couldn't drive by the ocean, couldn't take a shower, could only take a bath and a couple inches of water, would get a migraine for 3 days. Really bad, and had no conscious memory of where it came from, by the way. So
was she able to drink water?
She could drink water. It was about being around big bodies of water. To my knowledge, she could drink water. But so one day she came in and she said, oh, when I even think of water, I get this pain in the pit of my stomach. And Dr. Callahan thought, I just studied the stomach meridian. And he just got this flash of intuition. He goes, Mary, tap here. just tap here for a couple minutes. And she did, because this is where the stomach meridian begins. Tap here. And he said she got this weird look on her face, and she said, "Oh, that went away." And she goes, "What went away?" She goes, "That pain in the pit of my stomach. It's gone." He's like, "Really?" And she got this weirder look, and she goes, "Yeah, and so's my fear of water gone." And he's like, "Oh yeah, sure, Mary. Let's go to the pool then." She gets up on her own, walks out the door, starts walking down to the pool. And he goes out the door. He goes, "Mary, stop." And she turns around. She goes, "I'm not stupid. I know I can't swim. I'm not going to jump in your pool." But she walked down to the pool, leaned over, put water all over her head and face, got no migraine. That was it for her. And never had a fear of water after that. The next day, she lived in California. And in those days, you didn't have thunderstorms in California, only rainstorms. So it was raining, and she waded down and waded in the ocean. No problem. So he's like, "What happened?" And so he had all his phobia people do this. No big deal. No change. So, but he was smart enough to know something happened to this woman. And so since he'd been studying muscle testing, he started muscle testing where there were points that corresponded to different meridians. So he'd have the person think of their phobia and then see what meridians went weak in what order. And then he'd have them tap those points. And the phobia went away usually in 3 to 5 sessions, even if they'd had it their whole life. So that was the beginning of tapping, really.
Is that the sort of success you experience as well with clients?
Phobias? It's amazing. It's amazing. Like I have people who can't fly, they're flying all over the world now. It's amazing with phobias. Phobias are not one of the more difficult things. So it's like anything. So sometimes we get what's called the 2 minute, one session and it's done. And sometimes you have to do it. It's like going to the gym. Sometimes you have to do it more regularly. So it depends. But the nice thing about it is you can do it on your own in between. So people can go home and do tap just to regulate. But you can take an event. I mean, I've seen amazing things with tapping, physical and emotional things just clear up to an amazing degree. So we teach that, and we really encourage people. And I gave you on the list of things, Brad Yates is a guy on YouTube who has a boatload of free tapping videos for anxiety and all kinds of different things. And they're really good. And I put 3 links into the stuff that you're going to share with everyone who's on this that are good. One's for anxiety. One's a general, where are the tapping points? And I can't remember the third one, but he's really good. And then the book I recommended. So you can do a lot of this really, like if you're a person who does due diligence, you can dig in and do stuff. Just if it's major, I mean, we have special training to work with trauma because it's not like your average thing, but it can work amazingly well for that. And then a third technique we do a lot is, which is a relatively new one we've learned, which is out of Australia. It's been there for probably 11 years now. When we discovered it had been there for 10 years. And it's called TRTP, or the Richards Trauma Process. And we learned about that through one of Marianne's mentors, because we were like, there's so many people who've had so much trauma. Isn't there something? And he's like, "Let me get you hooked up with this woman in Australia." So we met, her name's Judith Richards, and she's got a YouTube channel, which is probably called the Richards Trauma Process. And I'll have a link to that as well. And we began her training. And what's unique about her, she was incredibly traumatized, like beyond what we'll talk about here. And she kind of had to figure it out because she had a son who was also traumatized, and she wanted to get well enough to get her son well. So she said, "I would have just probably taken my life if I hadn't had my son." But her son motivated her, and she put all these amazing pieces together. And what's unique about her method is it's 3 foundational, it's 2-hour sessions, 3 weeks in a row, and that's the foundation of it. And it's like a session ahead, a couple follow-ups, and remarkable things happen. So it's not 2, 3, 5, 10 years in therapy, and it really puts things to rest, and it really shifts the nervous system. So it's a remarkable up-and-coming technique. Again, we just happen to be in the right place at the right time. There's probably 15 people certified in the United States, and 3 of them are at our place. Me, who's not doing much, but Marianne and Nikki, who's at our center.
And is this physical trauma or emotional trauma or both?
Both, both, and yeah, both. And they've worked with um, just with people who've been through really bad trauma, but also people, we'd say big T and small T trauma. So not everybody's had big T trauma, but we've all had small T trauma when we've been left at somewhere, and to us it was huge, or we've been, totally humiliated in front of a a class, or, and so basically the nice thing about this technique, it does not re-traumatize you. You don't have to go into the events. So it doesn't re-traumatize you. You don't have to get into the events. And it's very, very powerful reset for the system. And again, actually, we were lucky enough to have Judith Richards fly here last fall and do a presentation, which was a real
Wow.
pleasure. Yeah.
Wow. Well, I wish I would have known about it.
Yeah.
In medicine, the approach is so compartmentalized. Heart doctor deals with heart and probably even with a specific area of the heart. So all is so very compartmentalized. And here in this Western culture, we're used to that. And your approach is a lot more, it's actually not just a lot more holistic, but it is holistic. What's the benefit of one over the other?
Well, I think Western medicine is great for extreme crises. They are good at putting people back together. Their eye procedures are good. They're not great for chronic stuff or lifestyle stuff. So I think they've gotten so compartmentalized, that they're not looking at the body as a whole, and really our body, mind, spirit as a whole, which is and it's not, a lot of it's not their fault. They get 7 minutes to figure you out, right? How are they going to possibly figure you out in that 7 minutes? And all they have time to do is write a prescription, or tell you it's in your head or something. It's gotten to a very dysfunctional place, I think. Now, not that there aren't good parts of it and good people going into it who mean well, for sure. There are. But I think its best place is in the emergency room, really. They're phenomenal there. But as far as, chronic disease, we've stopped looking at things that are really important: nutrition, stress, movement. There's so many things that are critical pieces, and that's literally not in that system. They don't even have time to learn about it, but they don't have time to practice it. And if I was a doctor, I'd just be so frustrated, and I'm sure a lot of them are. It's so limited how much time they're given, etc. Surgery, so they're good at surgery. They're amazing at certain things, but it's when you get into what we're seeing, which is epidemics of chronic disease in this country. And now again, it's happening to kids, right? Diabetes and just huge stuff that is epidemic. And that's, I think, the big missing piece that the holistic helps with. Looking at all the pieces of the puzzle, and also making it,
You guys,
getting into daily practice.
Yeah. So the other day, I met a woman. I was getting an MRI, and her friend was getting an MRI, and we were just talking there. And she told me that she has recently been diagnosed with cancer, breast cancer, and that she's not doing any chemo, and she's not going at all to Western medicine. She just has a total holistic approach. So do you have answers for that?
I have definitely help for that. And one of the things, so I do a lot of very individualized muscle testing to see what a person needs and doesn't need. There's definitely clinics that are holistic that just deal with that. But honestly, if I had cancer, a place that I would go for sure is to Dr. Joe Dispenza's work, because he's got amazing. And he's scientifically documenting it. So drjoedispenza.com is his website. And he has a documentary there, brand new documentary called Source. Source, It's Within You. And they're doing scientific testing of these people that are going to these, basically, his story is he was 24 and was in a triathlon. He was a chiropractor, hit from behind, dragged, I think, 200 feet, shattered 6 vertebra. And 4 different neurosurgeons said, you got to get a rod and the screws, and you got to be in a cast for a year. And even then, you may not ever walk again. He was fully paralyzed. And he, after the 4th one said it, he goes, if it had been one of my patients, I would have said, yeah, just do it. He goes, I just couldn't do it. He goes, I just kept feeling that the power that made the body could heal the body. I just kept thinking that. I think the power that made the body could heal the body. And he said, if I could just show it, he was a chiropractor, so he knew exactly what those 6 vertebrae should look like perfect, if they were perfect. And so he'd spend every day visualizing, going around in a holographic way, the first vertebra. And then if he had a negative thought, like, you'll never walk again, you're never going to see a sunset, he'd make himself start all at the beginning. And he said it was 6 weeks of a dark night of the soul, because it took him forever to get through those 6 vertebrae without going into negativity. But about week 6 or 6.5, he started to move. I think it was a toe. And then he started to move more and more. And by, I think it's week 10, he was he just said, I just knew I could stand, and he did. And week 12, he was back in his office working. And he had promised, I'm sure the creator, that if it worked, he would spend the rest of his life studying how it worked. And so that's what he did. He sold his practice, went to the Pacific Northwest, got a PhD in neuroscience, and started seeking out people who had, radical remission when they said they were dead. You're gone. There's no hope. He would talk to them. What'd you do? Who got well? What did you do? What did you do? What did you do? And so he's studying this neuroscience, meditation, and inspiration. And he was in the movie What the Bleep. I don't know if any of you saw the movie.
I mean, I have. I don't know about the rest.
So what the bleep was like, what the bleep do we know? There's so much more out there. And so he started doing these, workshops and telling people about the neuroscience. And they're like, yeah, but how do you do it? How do you do it? So he started doing these weekend retreats to get people out of their environment. And he would go over the neuroscience. This is what we're doing and why we're doing it. And now let's meditate and do it. And so he was just like he did. He was literally helping them rewire brain circuits to create what we do want. Because he said, otherwise you're dragging the past into the future. But if you rewire and refire these over and over and over, like he did, looking at those vertebrae as they were perfect, he literally rewired those and they became perfect. So he's teaching people to do that. He has over 400 testimonials online, tons of them with cancer. I mean, talking 4th stage metastatic, all throughout the body cancer, then gone. So they're not doing it overnight. They're working this. They're working this whole program. MS, Parkinson's, deep depression, anxiety, chronic pain. It's just remarkable. And he's documenting it all because he's like, we're doing this as humans. We're doing this. This is possible. We're lengthening telomeres. We're down-regulating the negative genes, and we're up-regulating the positive healing genes, because it's not your genes. That's what Bruce Lipton proved. Bruce Lipton's book, Biology of Belief, which came out in 2005. He took cloned identical cancer cells, from one cell, they make a lot of cells, exact same cell, put some in a negative toxic environment, some in a very pristine environment. The pristine environment, no cancer. The negative environment, those cells got cancer. Identical cells. He's like, oh my gosh, it's not the genes, it's the environment. And truly, there's less than 1% of diseases that are truly genetic. The rest is environment. And environment's a broad thing, right? It's our thoughts, it's toxins, it's what's in the air and the water. But a lot of it's, our beliefs, right? Can we heal? Can we not heal? And the kicker
I had to move because my internet was unstable. I apologize.
Oh, sure. And the kicker on the thought part, which is a big deal, right? How we think and how we believe is a big deal. 90 to 95, most people say 95% of what we think throughout the day is unconscious. It's not like, I want to do this, it's the unconscious beliefs that are there unconscious or subconscious. They're programs to help us live, and we have to have those, right? Otherwise, we'd have to learn to walk every day and talk and read. So we have all this programming, most of which got downloaded from age 0 to 7. When we're very young, we're in theta brainwave, which is a hypnagogic state, which means we're just literally taking in, this is what the world is, this is who I am, this is how people relate, this is how people relate to me. So we download negative beliefs of, I don't matter, I'm not worthy, I don't deserve, I'll never heal. And then also we download them during any traumatic time. So any particularly long-term stress or extreme stress, we download also beliefs. So a lot of the healing work now is how do we change, how do we shift those negative beliefs and get them shifted for good. And that's Dr. Dispenza's work does that. The TRTP does that. Even the tapping is good for that, gets into that unconscious. But that's why we self-sabotage, right? It's like, I want to have this great relationship, but I keep picking the wrong people, or I want to be successful, but I keep not making it happen. It's because somewhere in those unconscious core beliefs are, not you, honey, you don't deserve it. And we've got to shift those to really make differences in our health and wellness.
So here's my follow-up question, Libby, how important is belief that this approach is going to work? And I'll just give you a little example. A couple of years ago, I had one of those heart math little gizmos, and I downloaded the app. And you know that when you are what's that word you used?
Coherence.
Yeah, incoherence. Then it's blue.
Coherence.
The light is blue, right? So you're shooting for the blue light. And so I would put it on, and of course it would be red, and then I'd try to go into coherence, and eventually it would turn into blue. But then I would get all anxious, like, oh my God, I won't be able to keep it in the blue, so it would go back in the red. And I just really worked myself. I felt like a total failure, and I worked myself into a tizzy because I'm like never in the blue, and then when I do get in the blue, I immediately scare myself out of it. Now, Patty, my wife, put it on, and there's no way she could make it go into the red.
She's in the zone.
Yeah, she just lives there. She lives in the blue. It's like she couldn't think herself into the red, and I felt like such a failure,
Right. Well, someone should have told you that you aren't supposed to look at it when you do it because that makes you go back into the bad part. So you're supposed to just get it hooked up and then kind of put it to the side and then do the techniques. And then when you're done, you look at the report, because otherwise you're making yourself, you're trying to succeed. You're working too hard at it.
Yeah. That was totally my experience. So eventually I just said, to hell with it. I don't need constant confirmation that I'm in a tizzy. And but the other thing is, like, when you have a surgery and somebody removes an appendix, you have an issue with your appendix and somebody removes it, you don't really have to believe in that. It's like it's a done deal. You had a problem with it, it's gone, and you're feeling better. And when you're having these holistic approaches, to what degree do you have to have belief in it?
I think
for it to work.
Yeah, I think I've worked on people. So let me just tell you, when I tap with people, I know they think it's crazy. It's like, what do you mean this is going to work? What do you mean? So I actually add that into the tapping, even though I think this is crazy. So that you're clearing their disbelief. But so this is what I usually tell people. Look, you don't have to totally believe in this. Just don't think it's total hogwash. Just be open. Like, maybe it might work. That's enough. Yeah. And even so, I've worked with people who, like, I had this guy who came for quit smoking one time. His wife sent him. He didn't want to be there. He was like pissed. And I'm like, I guess we're just supposed to do this. I mean, he came back the next day. He's like, I don't even want a cigarette. I can't believe this. So a lot of times it can work even without belief, but with anything, it's always better if you're at least open. Like, let me see.
Yeah.
Let me suspend disbelief. And if you're open to, like, hey, it might work, that's even better. But yeah, so it's always better. And you know, they've done these sham surgeries. They did them in England, I think, years ago, where they said they were going to go in and fix their knee issue, and they just went in and did nothing, but pretended they were doing a surgery. They went through the whole procedure, and the guys were like, "I'm so much better. I can't believe it. My knee that's hurt for 20 years, it's all better." The one of Dr. Joe Dispenza's books, I think, yeah, I have here, great book. You Are the Placebo. And it's all these amazing studies about the power of the mind. And so when you read that, you're like, wow, it's important how I think. I want to get my thinking in line. And that's why Dr. Joe has people do these meditations every day where you're creating your future. You're literally visualizing what you do want with, so it's a clear intention with an elevated emotion. And those two things together are like magic. They literally create and change things. Those are what healed his vertebra. So you feel, and it's in the Bible, as if you act as if it's already happened. It's about prayer. You act as if it's already happened. And so you're literally just spending time each day, and you're wiring those neural circuits so they know when people play piano, and then or different groups just imagines playing piano, it affects the same area of the brain. The same area of the brain gets developed. Or when one group is doing bicep curls and the other group's just imagining it, that group just imagining it, their bicep gets bigger, measurably bigger. So it's affecting the body. So just by using the literally visualizing, you create all these neurochemicals, and you downregulate the negative genes and you upregulate the positive genes. And I mean, if you get on the Dr. Joe Dispenza YouTube's unbelievable testimonials. They're just incredible. It's a very amazing thing. And again, that documentary is called, which is The Source. It's called Source. It's Within You. Is super good because it's got a whole team of scientists showing, yep, this is happening. It's very cool.
Loving this idea of just thinking about exercising.
Well, it's better than not thinking about it or feeling bad about not doing it.
That's right. Of all these things, that's what I picked up, Bussy.
Oh, that's great.
So tell me about a little bit about your retreat center, your new place.
Well, we
and you were going to show at any point. Feel free to show.
Yeah, I should show at least this because it's got my disclaimer, which I should have put at the beginning, that I'm not a medical doctor. Let me see if I can get this to come up. Marianne tried to help me, and if it should work. There we go. So that's, oops. Can you guys see that? It might look kind of, there's stuff all over, but so that's a picture of the wellness.
Yeah, it looks great. You're doing fine. Okay. This is.
And then this just tells about it, that we have labyrinths, and it's just a very serene environment. We got labyrinths out behind the center. And we have so our mission is, basically that. And then the disclaimer, which is, I'm not a doctor. And we're here, we're just educating you. And we're not trying to get you to do this as a treatment or a prescription or cure for disease. I just said that at the beginning, but I'm saying it now. Yeah. So basically we have basically the downstairs is the wellness part, and the upstairs is where we have classes. We have Tai Chi and Qigong. Fortunately, two friends of mine moved here from California to be part of this in the middle of 2021. A super good acupuncturist who I actually went to high school and college with, who's been in California all this time, and his wife, who's an amazing massage therapist and body worker. They came and joined, and he's a Tai Chi and Qigong master, and he does classes on Sunday mornings before our meditation. And we have a meditation from 12 to 1:15. And we do heart math in our meditations, and we have crystal bowls and different things. It's on our website. On the fourth Sunday, which will be this Sunday, we do Dr. Joe Dispenza guided meditation. And the first Sunday we have Tibetan bowls. We have several groups of Tibetan bowls. And then down below is all our wellness stuff. So we have light sound healing chambers called Energy Genesis machines. There's 12 of them in the world, and we just happen to be in the right place to get the first two. We have a Neuroptimal, which is an amazing non-invasive brain training with it's the only non-invasive neurofeedback, and it's super good for all kinds of helping you stay in the present moment. ADD. I mean, we can't say it works with these, but what we see help with is attention, emotion, depression, sleep, anxiety. Very good. And it's just basically lets the brain know when it's going out of discomfort or into or away from the present moment just by a little bit of a glitch in the music. And it's enough for the brain to go, oh, okay, back to present moment. It's training the brain to stay in that present moment. So we have just all kinds. I've just always been a person interested in technologies and kind of combined with, you know, the ancient things like acupuncture and supplements. I'm just a big believer that it's hard to get what we need through our food. So super picky, and I muscle test everything. So it's the right supplement for the right person in the right dosage. So that alone is super helpful. And, you know, we just do a combination of things. And we have a schedule, but if anyone ever wants to come out and just get a tour of the wellness center or look around, they're certainly welcome. We might be the best kept secret in the area because we're not very social media-y at all. But so we have 4 of us, and then Nikki's joined us recently. Nikki does TRTP and has training in heart math, and she's a nice young mom and helps with the younger group. And we have a forest school. We have a lot of different things. We have a forest school on Mondays that kids can be outdoors from. This is a different group that's using our land to do it, but really neat group. Outdoor school from 10 to 2 on Mondays for kids 4 to 14, which I wish I could have had when I was a kid. I would have loved it. And then we do the Earth holidays because we're about, you know, connecting with the earth and being in nature. So we do the solstices and the equinoxes. We have a little ceremony, and then we have a potluck, and then we usually have a drum circle. And that's that far building on the left there that you can see is the dance barn, what we call the dance barn. And that's where we have our equinoxes and our Earth holidays, equinoxes and the solstices. So yeah, it's a little bit of everything. We've got 2 labyrinths that we mow. We've got a 200-foot great infinity loop labyrinth that's got 8 circuits. And then we've got a heart labyrinth because our land is based a lot on the heart in the other side of the land. And those are mowed labyrinths that people can walk. And we've got wooded trails. And it's just a sweet spot.
You've created a little heaven on earth there. And
well, it's a nice spot, and we actually live on the land. It wasn't we didn't think we were going to live on the land because we thought we could just actually turn the house that was here into the wellness center, and we bought the land, had zoning, had a guy working on it, and yeah, you can do that. And then once we bought the land, he goes, oh no, you have to move there too. So we ended up moving to the house, which worked out great because it's a great location, and converted the barn into the wellness center.
So it sounds like you are establishing your own little church where you do Sunday morning little.
Yep, we have a meditation. Yep, Sunday morning, and so we have kind of some of the people come for services don't, we have sort of different groups that do different things, but we have a small group that comes Sunday mornings. It's very nice and do the heart math and the Tai Chi and Qigong, and we have community acupuncture 2 Sundays a month that Rick does. So after the service, like at 1:30, 1:15 on the first and third Sunday, Rick will stay and do community acupuncture, which is where you get it in a group, and so it's a much less fee. It's $20, and he individualizes it a little bit, but people are sitting and just get to experience acupuncture, and that's been a nice contribution too. For people who want to get something.
Wonderful. Well, right about now, I open it up to the group. So if you have questions for Libby, this is a wonderful time and opportunity to ask away. Maybe you came with a prepared question, or maybe something got stimulated during our conversation. So here's your opportunity to talk with Libby. And Kathy, go ahead.
Libby, I am just so energized just listening to you. You are right up my alley. I've done a lot of educating myself about health issues because of my own chronic health challenges. And I'm just so excited. And you are a good, well kept secret because I never heard of you before this. A couple questions. Do you do any of your classes? Are any of them on Zoom so you don't have to be in person? Or I understand the value of being in person, but
We haven't yet, Kathy, but and some of them are experiential for sure in terms of, but I think we'll consider that. It's really a good idea because there's a lot of people who might attend if we could do it that way. So I'm actually glad you're bringing it up, and I'll definitely keep that in mind because it's a good idea. It just makes it so much more accessible for people, particularly with winter coming.
yes, right. And you can serve so many more people if you do use the Zoom feature.
Right.
I'm a snowbird and I'll be going to Florida for the winter soon. I mean, I would love to participate in many of the things you're talking about. Do you ever work with different addictions as in healing mode?
Yes, I mean, for sure. I mean, acupuncture is great for stop smoking. It's also very, very helpful for alcohol and even hard drugs, crack and cocaine. But with those latter two, there would need to be obviously more than just what we're doing. That said, most addiction is due to anxiety, which is due to pain or trauma. So if depends on how willing the person is to work on some of that and clearing some of that, but also the self-regulation techniques we have, like the tapping and the heart math, could be very helpful for that. Very good. Both are very good for anxiety and depression. And when I work with smokers, I would actually sometimes do tapping with them because they would say, I want to give up, but I don't want to give it up because it's been my best friend. I go out in the car, I can do this. So I would actually tap those things to help that clear. In fact, one time I tapped a guy that was super addicted to this one kind of ice cream. And he came back, he was furious. He goes, I don't even want that ice cream. I'm so mad. It was very funny. But yes, it could be very helpful. So anything that helps with trauma and anxiety would help with addiction. And then even the neurooptimal, actually, the neurofeedback, so that the brain, because it's getting the brain into a better space as well. So depends on what the person is and and even if, let's say the person had addiction and they're like, I just want to feel better, but I'm not sure I'm ready to work on my addiction. We have tools that would help them a lot, which would then lead to less addiction or less desire for the.
Wonderful. Yes, there's so many aspects to an addiction, and it sounds like you've got modalities for many of them. One more question from me, and that would be, why did I just forget it? It'll come back. If someone were going to come to you for the first time, Libby, do you do any kind of an intake? What would the process be? So I want to hook up with your organization. I know you can help me, and there's plenty of places you could help me.
Right.
How does that work?
So if I'm taking people I'm taking people, but not everybody, right? But so for me, when they see me, usually I'll talk to them first. So if somebody comes and they've hurt their shoulder, Rick's a fantastic acupuncturist. I'm like, no, don't see me, see Rick. But I want to work with someone who's like either has something complicated or wants to work on a lot of different aspects of things. And then my initial appointment is like 2 to 2.5 hours, and it's generally $200. And then my follow-ups are somewhere between 90 and 120. That said, we do work with a sliding scale for people. I just did somebody yesterday that really, had a big issues, and it really helped her. And I used a sliding scale because I just knew that that was what she could do. So, so it really depends where the person is and kind of how motivated they are to like embrace some of this other stuff. Because I have a lot of tools, and so it's a waste of me if they just want to come for acupuncture. Honestly, I want to do some of this other stuff. I tap with people. I work with them with heart math. I want to help them self-regulate. But we have, Rick's great. He's a phenomenal acupuncturist who actually does body work with his acupuncture. So he's done massage for all this time. Shiatsu. He's the one who trained me in shiatsu massage, but he does regular massage with his acupuncture, and he's the only acupuncturist that I know of in the country who does that. It's a phenomenal combination, and he's really good. So we're super glad to have him, and Carla. Both of them were, they were treating the San Francisco Symphony Orchestra and the opera singers out there. They're very high level practitioners. I never thought they'd be here, but they wanted to come back to Michigan and be part of this.
That's great. You have quite a few workers there, therapists and such. But okay, so my first appointment, what would I do? Pick an issue? All right, my biggest issue is chronic whatever.
Well, we have an assessment, a thing to fill out, like
okay.
what's going on, what are you doing about it now, what's helped, what hasn't, what are you, and I, I usually don't just take one issue. I talk about a lot of issues.
Connected.
Yes, because it's all interwoven. And I do a lot of MRT, muscle response testing, to test your body to see what's going to be helpful, what's not, so we can get the stuff that isn't going to even work out of the way. And it's a very, very helpful tool for me. I'm into nutrition. I have 5 kinds of magnesium because one kind of magnesium might be great for you, but not for somebody else. So I get it really individualized. And when you do that, wonderful things happen.
So once the assessment's done, then does someone say, well, you would be best off to see Libby or Nicole or...
Right. Right.
Yes.
So sometimes,
okay.
Right. So sometimes someone might see me for the initial, and we might figure out some stuff. And then I might say, I think you're going to need some regular acupuncture. And I think Rick's going to be the person. Rick's phenomenal with chronic pain and all kinds of things. Or it might be that I think if you're open to it, maybe you need some TRTB. It might be Nicole, or it might be Marianne, or maybe some neuroptimal. Marianne's the heart math coach. So depends on what the person's open to and kind of what steps. Everybody can't do it all and doesn't need to do it all.
Right. Now I noticed you're a charitable organization. Does that mean when you pay for services that it could qualify as a donation on your
No, unfortunately, we've gone back and forth trying to figure out the best way. It's a little tricky because we live on this land and we didn't want it to become possibly something that could be taken away from us if we became a 501(c). So we're just a step under it. I think we're a 508(c), and so we're tax exempt in the state, but we can't do the donation thing, at least not yet. We actually... It's a long story. You have no idea. We became it and then said, I don't think that's the right thing, did other things. And then anyway, now we're just a version under it. So,
okay.
No, and the wellness stuff is, that would not be a charitable, something for like the classes or the spiritual part, or if people make a donation for that, if we were a 501(c) would be, and maybe we'll eventually get that again. We just have to, it's a little tricky again because we live on this property.
Right. Thank you very much, Libby. I'm going to let others have a turn.
Okay.
But, good for you. Thank you. Thank you for doing what you do. It's a great alternative to the Western medicine model. Thank you.
You're very welcome. And we'll try to work on those Zoom classes.
Okay, great.
Anyone else? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I was just going to say, yeah, Rev G, that
Becky
had a question. So
Becky, did I see you raise your hand? Yes. Go for it. And you're muted, Becky. Please unmute.
Oh.
Yeah, you're still muted. Hey, Deborah, can you ask Becky to unmute, please?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Libby, I did actually come to your office years ago for acupuncture. Everything you're doing is everything I'm wanting to go for. I work as a wellness coach at corporations, just doing mostly cholesterol, blood pressure, blah, blah, blah. But I hear so much emotional stuff relating to what I'm dealing with. I need to come to you. Yeah, I think you talked briefly just a little bit about trauma and PTSD. And that's kind of, I'm 67, so just past deaths and griefs, husbands and people that I've lost in my life. And now at 67, I'm going through this, I call transitional stress. My mother's in memory care. I'm losing her. She's in Birmingham still. My daughter's doing well in Dayton. But for some reason, at 67, I'm now processing all the stuff I went through in life. I came to I was doing carpal tunnel stuff, and you guys did some amazing stuff with the acupuncture. I'm now trying to process the emotional loss, grief, moving on, neuroscience, this stuff in my head. And that's why I'm interested in what you're doing, what you're talking about, because as I talk to so many of my clients at all my sites, emotionally, we are a toxic mess. My clients are 80% now are on antidepressants. The amount of medications I'm following, you probably heard of her, Casey Means, Casey and Kelly Mean. And then there's that, the Yuck app, and then there's the Bobby Beyond or Bobby Approved. So looking at all the foods that are going into our processed foods, I'm seeing it at the wellness rate that I'm working with my clients. I'm like, oh my God, thyroids are tanking. People are gaining weight at exorbitant amounts. The emotional tanking. And so for me, because I've gone through a lot, I just want to get to what you're talking about, Libby, as far as almost the neuroscience of tapping, which I did way back when one of my coaches at Western taught me about. So I'm going to follow up with you after, but I don't know how are we going to make changes in this world to get people aware of what you're teaching?
Right, right. I mean, I think it is happening, but you're right. A lot of people are pretty clueless. I mean, well, I'll just give you an example. I would say a huge percentage of what used to be high-level supplement companies have been bought out by Nestle, Clorox. It's insane. Like, I never thought I'd see this in my practice. So now, I mean, I've greatly limited the supplement companies I carry because I just won't, once they're bought out, and there's no way I can guarantee their thing. So, and the same thing's happening in the food. So, the more we can get clean food from our farmers market and know the farmer and grow our own. I mean, we didn't think we were going to be farmers, but we're growing sweet potatoes and all kinds of things here now. But anyway, I think it's one of the things that's encouraging about Dr. Joe Dispenza's work is that what he's proving is that we can change things. We are, I mean, this is fact now, we are 99.99999% energy, and we're 0.00001% matter, probably with a few extra nines and O's. So we're mostly energy, which is why energy techniques work so well. And what he's doing is he's changing matter with energy. He's changing matter through using the mind to create what we do want.
Right.
And he's proven it scientifically. All these genes down, we're releasing all these great chemicals. We're upregulating the good genes. We're having these unbelievable healings. And he's getting to it because he's using the language of the unconscious, which is what TRTP does as well. Yeah. The language of the unconscious is the imagination. And to the body and the unconscious, whatever you richly imagine is as real as anything that you've experienced, which is why it's really important not to spend a lot of time catastrophizing about the election or any of it. Because
so when you talk about, like family and my mother back in the 70s, I grew up in Birmingham with Meg. We went to school, and we had different mothers, and we had different protocols, and we had different voices and different fabrics and different stories. That's what shapes us now at 67. So I'm still hearing my mother in her stories. And I think you said that earlier on, I don't know if it was you or maybe it was an earlier conversation with somebody else. how do we get into that neuroscience and regulate those stories and say, okay, no, this is not who I am. This is not what I need to do. You know,
Right.
and you talk about tapping, and I think I can't remember a gal at Western who she was really cool. Introduced me to tapping and grounding and getting outside and meditation. But
Right. Well, TRTP actually is amazing in that respect. So I mean, I've tapped with
TRTP,
yeah, TRTP. That's the technique that Marianne and Nikki are doing. I've talked to people. I mean, I've tapped with people forever, and I've seen done in the TRTP, which is the 2-hour sessions, and a preliminary and a couple of follow-ups, just to see how things are going and giving skills. I've seen huge changes in clients that I've seen for 25 years that I couldn't have got there with. It's so good for turning off the videotape loops that are in the unconscious. And that is a huge shift, because until we turn those off, it's as if it's happening over and over and over.
yeah.
And so TRTP is the first technique I've ever seen, and honestly, the only one that I know of that will do that in that amount of time frame.
Interesting.
It's an amazing technique. And it's as I said, it's been neat for me because I've worked with people so long, because people like what I do, so they keep coming. So I've seen people change in ways that they couldn't have changed in
Even for like
tapping sessions. Not that tapping isn't good, and I still use it. And then there's still life, and you still got to self-regulate. But in terms of really making some big headway with putting some of that stuff to rest, it's phenomenal. And Dr. Joe's work's very good too.
Cool.
Yeah. So I do remember you, Becky.
Are you still over on behind Denoyer or no?
No. Now I'm out on straight out West Main, near West Main 130, near West Main in M40. So M43, M40.
Okay.
Pretty near the corner there, just literally just before you get there.
Because you and I mean, Meg and I went way back, and we make tapioca every afternoon and go into your house. And I remember your mother, I think, was an artist, and you had a ton of sisters.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. And I think you lived across the street from John Moore, right?
Yep.
Yep. Yeah.
Good memory.
And then Timmy, Tim, were you Tim's age?
I think Tim was it was either a year, either older or younger. I don't think
Tim did very well. He went on to do Home Improvement and Last Man Standing, and still does stand-up comedy. I think he's got another series coming out.
How wonderful to be walking down memory lane, eh?
Yeah, no kidding. And this is like 70, 69, 70.
So here's hoping that you can reconnect with Libby.
Yeah.
And maybe there's help for your for that which is surfacing for you right now. All that is seeking healing and relief.
Yeah.
So anybody else would like to address Libby? I'm noticing that we're nearing our closing time, and I want to make sure that if there's something you need to speak about, you can. So either raise your hand on the screen or use the raise hand function. There you go, Susan Green. Hi, Susan.
Hi, Susan, calling in from California. And Libby, I noticed that you called your property and your healing center the Land of Light. And I was wondering how you see light and as a form of energy in the healing process, or how you chose that name as well.
Well, we thought long and hard and thought aloud a lot of different ones, and that's the one we really like. But definitely, the healing, because we're energy, right? Light, sound, frequency, vibration, those are all the modalities of the future. I mean, they're here now, but because they're so penetrating, and because we're mostly light. So we just felt like there was a lot of light on the land. Even when we first came here, we meditated and it was like, this is a really good place. And we've a lot of really positive things have happened here. So it was kind of a combination of just what are we going to call it, and knowing that that we are light and that light is healing. So
wonderful. Well, I vote for the Zoom until I get out to Paw Paw. I have to figure out even where that is.
Right.
So yeah, look forward to any Zoom offerings that you have in 2025.
Okay.
Susan,
Okay. Yeah,
Susan, how did you find this
I
opportunity to join us?
actually volunteer for Freedom to Choose. I'll be going there this weekend. It's a prison project.
Oh, okay. Yes,
And
yes,
had
yes.
Bonnie and David Paul on.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
I just loved the offering. So when I saw this Land of Light, I'm like, oh gosh, got to be there.
I'm glad you
Yeah, so
came.
grateful to be included.
Wonderful,
Great.
wonderful.
I,
Very
I
good.
I have a
Yeah,
question.
go ahead, Deborah.
I'm real interested in like forest bathing, which isn't which is just really walking in nature. But and I live on like 8 miles of trails in Parkview Hills and have really moved from Chicago. And although I loved Chicago, I moved here with a lot of depression and anxiety. And the more I walked the trails, the more things lifted. Um, and so I'm just curious because you talk about your center being in nature, and I know you have the camp for kids where they're out in nature, but do you have some of your treatments and everything that actually expose people to nature in a healing way, or if it's just that that's where you're located?
well, we often actually, after healing sessions, will say, why don't you go out and walk the land?
Uh-huh.
Or come early and walk the land.
Mm-hmm.
And so, because it's our private property, people will go, well, can I come out sometime and walk the labyrinth? And I'm like, just text us, and as long as it's okay with us, they just have to, because we're not like a public park. But the land, yeah, I'm big believers in the land being so healing, just so good for us to get out in nature. I mean, this fall has been unbelievable, like peak color. But
Yeah.
yes, I'm big believer that it's just so healing for us and grounding, like get our feet, ideally it's going to be a little harder now that it's getting cold, but get our feet on the ground and just we discharge so much of our excess energy into the land by doing that. And sometimes, if we can't get our feet, maybe our hands, or it's just, either way, it's good for us to be out in nature. And I think and really to go within, really the answers are within, the old, from the Bible, the kingdom of God is within you. That's a huge, very powerful statement. And it's really our healing abilities, that the power of our heart is the magnetic field of the heart is much bigger than the brain. And dropping into the heart is where we get our good information. It's not the monkey mind. It's dropping in here and going, what feels right? How does that feel to me? And the more I think we spend time, in our hearts and reconnecting with ourselves, our inner selves and our hearts, I just think, and nature, who's our, Mother Earth, is really heals us all. So I like the forest bathing idea.
Yeah, it's I'm not a scientist, and so I read things that goes in and out, but the whole idea that there's actually the chemicals from the trees that actually create an equanimity in us. So it's actually not only just peaceful, but it's scientific, of what
Absolutely.
we can
Right.
get. And, all those trees are out there talking to each other, and they talk to us too, at a biochemical level. So it's really interesting. Yeah.
Right. And that's why we chose to be on land, because it's a missing piece, right? We've got body, mind, and soul, but we've got to connect with nature and spirit in nature.
So Libby, we have a question in the chat that came to us from Ama Diaz.
Okay.
And the question is, do you have a land acknowledgement?
What is that?
LAND acknowledgement?
Yeah.
What is that? What is that?
I don't know what that is.
So maybe, do you mean, Ama Diaz, if their land is located on native land, and who that might be, who it might used to belong to? Yes.
Well, we definitely have had people see Native Americans here before we bought the land and after, Native American spirits. And I guess, and there's one particular woods that we actually call the Woods of the Ancestors for that reason, because we've got 2 sets of trails. But I don't know the exact tribe. But there's definitely a connection with which I'm sure there is everywhere, but this land I think was used.
So behind my house, there's 2,200 acres, and I live on 5 acres. My neighbor inadvertently sold the 14 acres next to me, which has all been developed, which crushed my heart. But the 2,200 acres behind me, the not DNR came in and destroyed probably 60 acres of trees, just destroyed them. They cut them down, but they don't take all the stuff out. They just take the trees out and they leave the brush. And I had these, what I call Burton Brutus, were burls on the trees at the back of the 2,200 acres. And I went out there when I saw them crush that down. I was devastated. My heart was crushed because I've been here 35 years. It took me 8 months to go back out there again because all my 3 miles of trails that I ran were just demolished because they demolished the trees. I mean, demolished the trees. And so now I've now recreated my 3 acre things. But that, when you talk about the forest bathing, that was my place to go. And then when they built the 14 acres of these houses.
Becky, if it's all right, I'm going to stop you for a second. We have a hand up, and I'm just going to give Stephanie an opportunity to speak. Thank you, Becky.
Thank you. I'm not an expert in any way, Libby, but it's acknowledging the land is something that's become important in our society. The only place I can think of that might be a resource is the people at Pine Reservation, east of Kalamazoo. They might, or they probably would be able to help you.
Okay, that's good to know. And we did do ceremony with our builders, asking permission to build and asking the nature spirits permission to build. So our builders were great in terms of working with us and doing ceremony and putting sacred crystals around. And but this is sounds like it's a whole nother level of things.
There's always more. So there's a few minutes left for your questions, and I would like to save a little bit of time to also tell you about upcoming events that we have planned for all of us. So if anybody else would like to squeeze in a short question or a comment, this will be the time. Well, I thank you all for coming, and I hope that you have gotten at least something out of it, but hopefully more than that, more than what you had hoped for. And Libby, I'm so grateful that you accepted our invitation. And I always, you're near and dear to my heart. And I know your heart, and I know how much you care. And I'm just so grateful that you're around. And like I said, I think of you as the royalty of alternative healers. And for us in Kalamazoo, Michigan, to have you, it just seems like such an unlikely blessing. So grateful for you in so many ways.
Thank you. Can I just say also, I made a bunch of doing this made me put together a bunch of notes on what I think's some really good resources and what's important. So I'm going to give those to G, and I think they'll email them out to people.
Yes, we will send you all you will receive a lot of resources. Look for it. And if you can't find it, be sure to check in your spam in case it goes there. We are sending it to you. And if you've registered, you should be able to get it and you are registered, obviously. Excellent. Deborah,
You want me to?
Yeah. Look, people are applauding you, Libby. So thank you.
My pleasure.
So one of them is that I don't know if you've ever heard, those of you who are here, you've heard of Byron Katie.
She's amazing.
Absolutely amazing. And she's going to be our guest on November 7th. And however, usually our program is at 7 p.m., but on that day it will be at noon. Katie is in in California, and that's the time she gave us, and Byron Katie gets to pick the time, and we adjust. If Byron Katie offers us noon, we take noon. So it's going to be the same format as this one. First, I will interview Katie, and then you too will get to ask your questions of Byron Katie. So it's an opportunity that I hope you would not allow yourself to miss in as much as possible. Please register if you can't attend because maybe the timing isn't right. If you register, you will receive the recording of that session. So you will be able to enjoy it at a later time as you are ready. So that's November 7 at noon, and that's Byron Katie. Spread the word. What's next, Deborah?
You know, we have more events, the upcoming events. Do you want to take them through the events, or do you want me to do that, Rev G?
Why don't you do it?
Okay, this is sort of my gallery. Let me see if I can close my gallery. Uh-oh, did I?
We can see it. This says
Okay,
don't
but
miss
I
these
can't, but it, now I can't see it.
Okay, then why don't I go through it?
Okay.
So teamwork. All right. So of course we have the Sunday services, which are at 10 a.m. In our building or on Zoom. We're available. So Libby, there it is. We never ever have snow days anymore, and that is the outcome of the pandemic. Really, before that, we didn't have a Zoom presence. Now we do. So I will be speaking on transformation. Um, on the micro and on the macro level. I'm excited about this talk. Then we have one of our members, Eric Nelson, and he is a mindfulness and meditation practitioner. And he has a mindful living class that's October 28th, 7 to 8 p.m. Then we have a workshop coming up. It's a sacred grief workshop, October 29th, 7 to 8:30 p.m. That's going to be on Zoom. And I forget her name. She's a Unity minister who is facilitating this. So if you have any grief, Becky, you may be interested in tapping into this opportunity. And then on November 3rd, our guest speaker is Fred Stella. He is from Grand Rapids, and he is an actor, but also a Hindu practitioner. He's like the equivalent of a Hindu minister. Practices at the Hindu temple. Wonderful human being. And then on November 16th, from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m., we will have a mindfulness retreat. And all of these are available. You can go and see in-depth information on our website, uucommunitychurch.org. Our main goal for this year is to live with love and offer all of these things in love. And our hope is to contribute to healing and betterment at any level, even if just a little bit, then we feel that we already live on purpose. So thank you all for coming. Libby, thank you so very much for accepting our invitation. What a blessing. And I'm glad that all of you joined in. It just wouldn't have been the same without you. So I'm glad you came. You added your thank you, Amma. You wrote it on the chat. What a wonderful evening. So take this energy and bathe yourself in it, and then see what it stirs up and brings up in you. And if you ever need Libby's services or the practitioners at the Land of Light, now you know how to get a hold of them. They're no longer the best kept secret, at least in this group for sure. And then spread the word to all you love and all you care about. So thank you all. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, Libby.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Good night. Bye.
Bye-bye.
That was great.